So in today's video, I just wanted to share with you all a really simple trick to figure out what notes are in any key on the guitar. It's pretty much foolproof. There will be a couple little things I'll have to explain so that you can get full use out of it, but it's something that I used to use before I had all of the keys of music memorized, and I think it's something that's super useful and super easy to do. So, if you aren't familiar with your major scale, I do have a video all about how to play it all the way up and down the neck, but we're going to focus on just 8 notes of that. And let's start with the G major scale, for example, to show this position, but I would play the 3rd fret of my E string, G, the 5th fret of my E string, which is A, then I go to my A string and I play the 2nd fret, B, play the 3rd fret, which is C, play the 5th fret of the A string, which is D, I play the 2nd fret of the D string, which is E, I play F sharp, which is my 4th fret of the D string, and then I play that 5th fret, which gives me G again. So those 8 notes, or I like to think of this, at least for the application we're going to be using this, I like to think about it as fingers, a fingering as well. So that is the guitar translation of a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, which is the intervallic sequence that gives us the major scale. So rather than doing that all the way up one string, which is a little bit cumbersome and has us traveling these long distances, this, or I like to think of it almost as middle finger, pinky, pointer finger, middle finger, pinky, pointer finger, ring finger, pinky. Anyways, that position is like the guitar translation of the major scale. And if we move this on either the A string or the E string to any key, we can use it to figure out what notes are in that key. Now, when you do this, I recommend that you keep a scrap piece of paper or a notebook, whatever it may be, nearby. It could even be a Word document, actually, on your computer. And just take note of what they are. So say, for example, you're going to figure out what notes are in the key of C major. Most people do know this. This is one of the first ones that people will learn. But if I find C on my guitar, which is, if you think of this open chord that, again, you probably already know, you know that that C is on the 3rd fret of your A string. And if you play that shape, you will end up getting all the notes of C major. Now, let's go through it. So our first note is C, our second note is D, our 3rd note is E, our 4th note is F, our 5th note is G, our 6th note is A, our 7th note is B, and then our 8th note or our octave is C again. Now C is a pretty easy key because, again, there's no sharps and no flats in that key. But let's say we were going to a key that has some sharps and flats, because this is something that my students always get confused on, and maybe you do too. I know it used to confuse me, where I never knew whether to call something, F sharp or G flat, or when it was either of them. Let's start out by going to an example where there is an F sharp. So we're going to go to the key of D. So I'm going to play that same shape, but I'm going to center it around my middle finger being 2 frets higher. So I'm on D, which is the 5th fret of my A string. And now, the first way to tell whether something is a sharp or a flat is to just keep going in consequential alphabetical order. So for example, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. In the key of D, if I go root, there's my D, my 2nd is E, I get to my 3rd, and this is either F sharp or G flat, but I know it's going to be F sharp because in music you have to go in consequential order. So it has to go some kind of D, some kind of E, some kind of F, some kind of G. It couldn't be, and I'll show you what I mean, where if I call that F sharp, which is correct, and that's what it is, my first 4 notes go D, E, F sharp, and then G. It is very confusing, and it works perfectly because D, E, F sharp is my 3rd, it's 3 notes away from D. It gets very confusing if I were to think of this as D, E, G flat, G, because now I don't have a 3rd and I have 2 4ths, and it's all, becoming a little bit much to keep in my head. So this can be a super useful tool to go through and find where these notes are sharp and where they're flat. And again, if you write out each key that you figure out and look at it for a second, then you'll be able to start digesting this and keeping ideas of what notes are in what keys. But let's finish that D major. So we had D, E, F sharp, G, then we get A, B. Now here, is it C sharp or D flat? It's C sharp, because it has to be, because I go from B to C sharp to D. It will always go in that consequential order, rather than jumping around two different ways, making everybody confused. Now that we looked at an instance where it's F sharp, let's look at an example where that would actually be G flat. And a perfect key to do this is actually the key of D flat major. So that's going to be with my middle finger hanging out around my 4th fret of my A string. Now when I go to do this, again, all I need to think about is those 8 notes, that shape. But let's go note by note and we'll see what happens. So here I get D flat. Here I either have D sharp or E flat, and I know it's going to be E flat because, again, my letter names have to keep going up as I go through the scale. So D flat becomes E flat. This is going to be F, and then I go here where it's either F sharp or G flat, and I know that it's going to be G flat because, again, the letters have to keep going up as I go up. So D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C, D flat. So by using this major shape, this middle finger, pinky, pointer finger, middle finger, pinky, pointer finger, ring finger, pinky, I can figure out the notes in any major scale. And again, this position, it falls apart if I try to start from the D string, but if I start from the A string or from the E string, I can figure out any scale and what notes are in that scale. Let's do one more just for fun. Let's say we're going to do the key of B flat, and let's do this one on our E string. So if I find B flat, I know that the 5th fret is A, because sometimes I use that to tune. So if I go 1 fret up, I'll have B flat. And let's use this shape and see if we can figure out what notes we got. So we have B flat. Up from that we would have C. Then we get D. This is going to be E flat, not D sharp, because again, I need to keep going in consequential order. There's F, G, A, B flat, A, G, F, E flat, D, C, B flat. So that is a trick that I teach all of my students so that they can start thinking about what notes are in different keys, and I also find it's really helpful to clear up that is it a sharp or flat dilemma, because I know that it can be confusing at first to know that F sharp and G flat are actually the exact same pitch, and depending on the context they might go by different names. But I really hope that helps you out. I hope you have some fun exploring around your guitar and figuring out what notes are in what keys. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It truly helps me out more than you know. If you want to support me or the channel, there's a link down there to my Patreon. There's also a link to purchase my course or my book if you're interested in getting some educational material from me. I also have a link to get in contact with me if you want to take a guitar lesson with me. I'd absolutely love to work with you on whatever's troubling you on the guitar. And last but not least, I've got new videos coming out every week, so I hope to see you in the next one. And until I do, I'll wish you a wonderful day, and I hope you have some fun playing the guitar. Thanks.